Hey everybody, my name is Rahul. I lead the data and AI teams at Tripadvisor. Hopefully you've heard or used Tripadvisor for your travel planning. And if you have used it, you might have seen some of the newer features I've been pushing last year and a half in particular. And so as it comes to agent use cases for us, the way we have defined it is in three broader categories. First and foremost is the agents that we push into a product. So example would be something like a AI-based trip planner. Right, something we launched that a year or so back, has been fantastic, well received. We have about 2 million plus trips created using that, and underneath that is a lot of multiple agents underneath that. Like there's review summarization, different decision making. There's certain aspects pulled into that. But that is one big broad area of where we have deployed agents. Second is agents for productivity, internal usage, whether it be engineering function or marketing, finance, analytics. There's a whole slew of agents we have been pushing into our employee productivity area. And then last is how we are externalizing certain specific data and intelligence and AI capabilities into our partner ecosystem. So a few months back, we released or announced a partnership with Perplexity. So when you look at in Perplexity Pro, searching for hotels, there's a certain ways in which Tripadvisor results show up. Or with Alexa. So there's an externalization of our intelligence and data is using some of these agents and some of these capabilities. And so that's a third broader area of how we are deploying agents.
Thank you. Yeah, this is great to be back this year, and it's awesome to see like how the wave has changed from LLMs to agents now, right? Everywhere you hear, it's like the agent piece, right? So a little bit about myself. I'm Anu Trivedi. I lead the applied science in Oracle Health for HDI. HDI is Health Data Intelligence, which is where the population health insights are given out to all our health customers. Oracle has been a very big investor on the health side since the past 4 years, since the acquisition of Cerner. And at this point of time, we are on a journey, right? We own about a large US patient data set, and our thinking has been around how we can evolve healthcare AI. As you might all have seen how AI is impacting every domain, and it's more and more becoming vertical AI. Healthcare is actually very much prepped for embracing this change, especially the agents. Especially because there is a huge lack of workforce in healthcare, and these digital workers or agents can definitely substitute and bring up healthcare for each of us at a place. So it's all about the patients for us, right? All about providing the right care at the right point of time. And what a wonderful time to be in healthcare AI and managing the agent space. For us, it's about managing the ecosystem. How can you start the journey from the data, from managing insights from the EHR, figuring out where the gaps are, where the care gaps for every patient is, figure out the recommendation of right therapies and clinical trials, and provide the value at every patient level from a provider perspective. From a payer's perspective, it's about how do you optimize the cost, keeping out the patients out of ER systems, and driving the right insights to prioritize the maximum opportunity patients to keep them out of the hospital systems. It's also about pharma. Pharma is also going through a large volume of change with all these AI insights coming in, and how to run more trials more efficiently at every site level, who are the right patients to recruit, how to reduce the adverse events and do things in a more safe manner. I think we are in for a huge change in the healthcare domain, and I'm excited to see what healthcare and Oracle can do together.
That's awesome. Well, okay, I know both of you guys are kind of deep in your own use cases. I'm going to go right into a question that I think a lot of folks ask us, and I'll just, we'll jump into it. So people ask us, the models are changing so fast. How do I decide what to actually have the model figure out and what do I actually have the application figure out? So I think we were at Build, and Satya was even talking about this, where he was like, there's a strategy of model maximalism, where you try to have the model figure out everything. And then there's a lot of teams who are like, the models aren't there yet. They don't have especially in healthcare for you, they don't have all the data yet. And so you have to be focused more about application maximalism. So how, for you both, where, you're literally leading AI in your organizations, how do you start to think about your strategy with AI? Model maximalist or application maximalist?
All right. This is an interesting question. And again, I would say, the easier answer would be, it depends on the context, depends on the use case, sure, right? That's the easiest answer to say that. And certain use cases lend very well to like just model maximalism, right? We have a sub-agent which is just review summarization. Just for context, on Tripadvisor, we have 1 billion plus reviews and opinions, a lot of forum data, a lot of textual data about a particular point of interest or hotel or restaurant or you may be. And so if you have to summarize all of that, very simple. Just throw in the best LLM and that's that. So that, it depends on the context. But I would say if I have to choose one, I would lean more towards application maximalism at this point. The reason for that is, especially in our journey of building and launching production agents, so much about agents is about how you integrate that in the existing workflows. Yeah. And those workflow integrations are very hard. Especially you have a legacy system, you have a new system, you have different contexts, you have different tools you have to call in, you have workflow. All that becomes quite tricky. And so it's so much complicated to figure out that entire workflow. And so more and more we're leaning towards, or we're thinking, at least I'm thinking in my mind, around application. So more robust application is, you can have your LLMs do less of it and then have that rely more on the application layer.
I would touch upon 2 points, right? Of course, is the one that you said in healthcare domain. There is a lack of domain understanding by the state of the art foundational model, but I definitely feel that is a gap which would be traversed over time, right?
Does that mean you guys invest in, sorry to interrupt you, but because it's just so different for healthcare, do you fine tune your own models? Like, do you build your own foundational?
That is a journey we are getting into, but it's the complexity of the data, right? It's about how you kind of create a more coherent data story before even you can throw an LLM at it, right? Because healthcare data is sparse as well as it's very complex. It's not only the jargons and the vocabularies, it's also about tons of codes and the disparity of different types of codes, because when you go to the money, the payers, the insurance, at the end of the day, healthcare is costly. It's all about the codes. And my team is sitting out there, and one of them is basically all they are trying to do is figure out the informatics. Informatics is a huge piece of applied science in healthcare, which is something which is completely missing in other domains, right? So there is an inherent amount of volume of knowledge which the LLMs need to traverse. But I also feel how the products are evolving, right? That we are more leaning towards the application maximalism rather than the model maximism, because right now, that we are seeing as trends, right? For any of our customers, people are not happy just, getting the AI insight out. They want to build their own insights. You have to start providing your agent studios to your healthcare providers, to your payers, because everybody wants to have that autonomy of, like when the Power BIs came out, right? We wanted to do the insight generation by slicing and dicing. Imagine agents are like that, right? And people want that customization on top of their analytics. So you cannot just throw everything at the model and let it solve. You need to give those Lego building blocks to your customers to play with, and it will bring out very unique inherent solutioning. And that's the trend towards like product solutioning, where we are going from static apps to dynamic workflows within apps based on a persona, based on a particular outcome that we are wanting to optimize towards. And that's where agents shine.
Nice. Okay, my next question, I guess, is going to lead into that, which is, I think everyone's been really excited, obviously, about Cursor. Because Cursor, you have the traditional experience of the code editor, and then they just beautifully had the LLM integration. You can pick context, you can, there's autonomy. Can you guys talk about what was the product strategy as you thought about building LLMs into your own product, what were things that, for Tripadvisor, it's obviously a chat-based experience. There was data obviously from all of your reviews, and there's a step-by-step approach in how you do it. Can you walk me through a little bit of how you decided to integrate LLMs into your existing product? Or did you go completely like nuke that, we're building a whole new product?
Yeah, I mean, those have been some of the discussions. I would say one of the, as you're thinking of the new or reimagined product experience, one of the guiding principles we were thinking just interactivity has become such a norm. It's an expectation. And so conversational interfaces or conversational experience is just a way to do things. And especially in travel, if you look at how we've all collectively as travelers search for anything, it's been a pretty like a same experience across the board. You have a filter, you have a standard page where you put in some dates, some filters, and push a button and you get a search results. That's a standard source. I mean, that's any travel company in the world right now, pretty much. And so when we started thinking about how do we integrate LLMs, that's what I said, the guiding principle was how do we think about changing that from an existing experience to a more of a conversational experience. So that was the first thing. And again, there's, as we're looking at some of the insights and market research, there's very adjacent proof points to that experience that support and validate that. If you look at ChatGPT, one of the reasons, obviously there's great LLM behind it, but it's such a simple experience. Or you go back to Google, you have a box and you kind of lead that, and then that can drive your experience. So that's what we come back to. It has to be conversational, has to be simple, and then the experience elaborates progressively as a user questioning or the queries evolve and get complex, right? So one of the other things we've been thinking about is, and this is especially true in the travel space, you don't want to throw everything that you know at the user. Because travel itself is a very considered, deliberate, quite involved process. And so our goal, again, another first principle was just make it easy, intuitive, delightful for the travelers. And for that to happen, we need to start with a very simplistic experience up front. Even just a box, a chat box, just have that at the start, have it be, have the experience be elaborated over the course of time, make it conversational, make it multimodal. Because again, travel is that kind of a space where just not text, it's the videos, the images, integrated into your social experience. All those things became, so I think those have been our guiding principles. And that's how we kind of figured out LLMs into those.
Got it. So yours are kind of chat experience, multimodal from day one, and then kind of simple UX type.
Absolutely.
Build off of the context the user is giving you.
Yes.
Okay.
And we're not fully there yet, but that's been the journey we're on.
For healthcare, it has been very, very different, right? Because healthcare essentially is a very blank slate, right? The process is pretty manual, undocumented, data is sparse, there's a lot of policies around what type of data usage, what kind of AI usage. So when we started, right, it was like, hey, what is the demand? What is the ROI for our customers? What is it that our customers would most benefit from? So if I go to a provider, a hospital system, what are they today struggling with? Because we know our hospital systems are struggling today, are crumbling today. We are not getting the right appointments at the right time. I was talking just to some people here. If you're a cancer patient or you're trying to get a lump diagnosed and analyzed, it's so long for you to wait, right? What is it that we can optimize for our customers most efficiently? Maybe the data is just lying there. We just need to connect it in a smart way to, bubble up that information. So it is completely vertical, customer driven, the problem at hand, because there's no lack of problems on the ground. We can start from clean set. There's less legacy problems, let me put it this way, right? Like you would see in an e-commerce or in a travel domain where a lot of automation has already happened. So that's where we wanted to basically start with understanding the customer's problem. What is the KPI to drive for? What is the outcome and the evals? Not only just from a model perspective, but the business outcome perspective that we need to dive for, because it is very much focused on the success ROI our customer is focusing on. So one of the things which we are looking for is essentially care gap closure. So if somebody is looking into surfacing schedule an appointment, When you are really sick and you are a cancer patient, you're assigned, only top 1% of cancer patients are assigned a personalized caregiver. Can we create digital agents for every cancer patient so that they can be tracked and all their social determinants of health, all their appointments, if they need transportation, all things could be arranged? Because there are lots of resources provided by Medicaid. It's just a lack of information and arranging, which is basically preventing from getting the right care for a cancer patient. So it is a necessity at this point of time, and we started there.
Got it. So your first principle was start with the customer and what is that customer's journey and build for that? Because it was kind of very greenfield.
Because,
Yeah.
in health or in any kind of B2B, to be very honest, it's not a B2C thing, because I've worked in e-commerce. I know it's a B2C, and B2B solutions are very, very different. When you are targeting multiple products for different categories of customers, start with your customers. What is the KPI you want to drive for that particular solution? And then see how you can replicate that. Whatever we are doing for cancer patients, care providers, we can very easily take that same solutioning out to quality managers for our insurance payers and just modify the KPI outcome thresholds a little bit,
Yeah.
and it will work.
Yeah.
So it's start with the customer, focus on what is the outcome they're trying to drive for, and then just build your workflow based on that.
Nice. Okay, so we just started with use cases. What was your guiding principles? So let's get in some tactical, I guess. What were the tools you guys started with? I think right now, as developers, there's almost so many there's so many open source tools. There's so many frameworks. We just had a framework panel this morning. How did you guys set up your teams or to think about what's the right tooling to solve the job? And this could be anything. This could be frameworks, evaluations. This could be, anything.
Yeah, I mean, that's a bit of broad, and that's what I was thinking for a second, because, there's a whole stack. I mean, I think we all know that. We've seen it. I mean, when we started, one thing we made sure upfront is we are very clear on the use case, especially when you think of agents, and again, all of you seen, or those who have built agents or on that journey. I would say that more often than not, it's about defining the objective and what you're trying to do with the agent. Is upfront is so important. That can make or break the success of what you're trying to do. And so define the problem upfront is very important. And then after that, we, at least initially, were not prescriptive to the teams about what tooling, what frameworks they want to use. Hey, you want to use certain stacks from a orchestration standpoint, go for it. There's so many choices. We kind of let the teams decide. And over the course of time, again, we've now come to a point of, we've done a lot of experimentation. Our teams have explored different frameworks, different models, different even eval tools, and we have kind of settled on a few. I mean, one thing we like, I have to name a new, I would say LangGraph has been fantastic. We actually, we were chatting a bit earlier as well, how do you think about the role of this, and is it a friction? Do these kind of frameworks, and how do you think about it? I think it's fantastic, especially given the landscape and how quickly it's changing. You need a intermediate framework layer that can be the glue on which you can build solutions from an input standpoint and from an output standpoint. So LangGraph is fantastic. Obviously, with the evals, we work with Arize. We've been fantastic with that. I mean, it's still a challenge. I mean, it's quality and observability is still an area we are not fully there yet, especially in a multi-agent system. But we have starting to crystallize on certain key partners where that's where we're seeing the benefits.
I would say for us, it's less about an agent and more about the final outcome. How you want to land on that final outcome and what are the steps you're breaking your journey into. So we started with evals, right? The first week of joining in Oracle, I started talking to you. If you remember, I gave you a call and we were like, okay, we have done this before in the past startup that I was at, and we absolutely need to do this, because one thing which is because our patients' lives is at stake. If something is wrong, then it's a huge compliance issue. It's a huge humanitarian issue. And evals is the first and foremost thing that we start with. Then you kind of start testing out at every stage, maybe at every agent, every LLM call, every kind of component testing, then the workflow testing, then the entire outcome, if you're landing on the business metric, is where we are going. So it is all about the evals, finding the right data, and driving for the right outcome for the KPI. And that's where most of the tooling we're using Arize for many of our observability pieces, the evals. We did explore a lot on the agents SDKs or the frameworks which are out there. We, as enterprise, we decided to use our own. There's a custom agent platform which we use inside of Oracle OCI. So I am seeing more of a trend of like cloud providers coming up with their own platforms, their own agents SDKs, expanding to basically take some of the larger OpenAI SDKs and other things which are basically coming up really, really faster. So those are some of the toolings which definitely can help. But it's a mix of custom tooling and third-party tooling and open source tooling, which basically is helping us go through this journey.
Any insights that you can share? I mean, you're kind of a greenfield, especially in healthcare, and you're kind of in a little bit of an industry that had an old approach of how to book. How do you guys think about maybe any insights for teams that are building agents today, getting them successful in production?
I can chime. I mean, I would say two things, two big lessons learned. Number one, especially anytime you want to build agent, I mean, talked about defining upfront what you're going to do, but also it's important to define like what are the inputs and outputs, especially for an agent. Integration is such a big challenge or big area to think about at the start. We stumbled, we learned, and we had some hard lessons, I mean, along the way. So to elaborate a little bit more on that is, if you think about any agent you want to build, and where does that get input from? What systems, what tooling you are connecting it to? What kind of integration points you have? I mean, especially for us, we have a part of the stack, part of the tooling that's legacy stack, and some of the stack is modern. We've built it now, and so how do you go integrate the legacy stack? I mean, it's simple as like we have a lot of code in Java, and we are like Python-based program. Like, how do you integrate that across different languages? I mean, all those become I want to challenge up front if you have to think about it. So the inputs is a problem. And then same thing on the output side as well. Like you have an agent output, where do you want to push that? And how is that going to be integrated into those workflows? And so the more you think about that up front, it can help solve or eliminate or minimize a lot of pain as you want to get traction and impact from those agents. So that's one. The other part, which is a lessons learned, it's still, I would say, not a solve, which we are working quite a bit at it, is evaluating quality of agents. We have our own internal framework. We have a combination of human evaluators. We have surveys. We have mechanical Turks. We have feedback in our chat prompts, thumbs up, thumbs down. We have defined 5 metrics to evaluate and measure quality. So we have done all of that because, again, like it's not life and death as in healthcare. But if you get a wrong recommendation on a trip, that erodes the trust. Like, if I'm planning 5, like whatever I'm planning, and I specify I'm a vegetarian, and I get a steakhouse recommendation, I'm like, what the heck? I'm not going to come back again. And so quality becomes important, especially in the multi-agent systems. That's still not a solved problem. We are still working through it. So I would say that's another one to think through.
And I would say think really hard if you really need an agent, or a cron job will do.
Good answer. All right, with that, thank you so much, Anu and Rahul.